Hello and welcome to a special episode of Palace Confidential. One of the biggest stories dominating royal news over the past year has been Prince Andrew, his friendship with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, and the efforts of American law enforcement to speak to him about it. Despite Andrew's denials of any wrongdoing, the story isn't going away. This is a roundup of Andrew's tumultuous years so far. Well, 2020 started with the nation still reeling from an interview the Prince gave to Newsnight. He did it in an attempt to clear his name from any wrongdoing committed by his friend and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The interview, however, was widely seen as a car crash, raising more questions than answers. With his reputation in ruins, Andrew was forced to withdraw from more than 230 charities and step back from life as a working royal.
Andrew, in his wisdom, went into that interview believing that it would clear his name. And he actually came out of that interview, according to my sources who were in the thick of it, thinking that he had done a good job of doing that. So when the headlines started coming thick and fast, it was a huge shock to him. And he didn't want to go willingly. He was told, that's it, this is too embarrassing, enough is enough.
And it was a further shock when this statement from the US Attorney Geoffrey Berman was broadcast from the steps of Epstein's New York mansion.
In Prince Andrew's case, he publicly offered, indeed in a press release, offered to cooperate with law enforcement investigating the crimes committed by Jeffrey Epstein and his co-conspirators. So I think in that context, it's fair for people to know whether Prince Andrew has followed through with that public commitment. So let me say that the Southern District of New York and the FBI have contacted Prince Andrew's attorneys and requested to interview Prince Andrew. And to date, Prince Andrew has provided zero cooperation.
Well, there's no doubt that what happened in New York on Monday absolutely blindsided Buckingham Palace. They weren't expecting this. And what was really interesting is they've spent, the past couple of years being Andrew's mouthpiece over the Epstein case. Suddenly, we're not commenting, we're not speaking for him. You need to speak to his legal team. The questions we ask, well, who are his legal team? We're not going to say. So it was literally like Andrew was being cut adrift. And that was a really noticeable change.
How quickly was he taken by his mummy to church? I mean, I was really appalled by that, really appalled.
Yeah, but I'm sure if your son denied allegations like he has, that she would take his word for it.
No, I would not publicly take him to church.
And it seemed Jeffrey Epstein wasn't the only unsavoury character Prince Andrew has associated with in recent years. So, Guy, you wrote the piece on Peter Nygard. Do you get the impression that the Prince is slightly lax with his due diligence on his friends?
Well, the short answer is yes. The long answer is yes, but we already knew that, didn't we? Peter Nygard is a sort of larger-than-life fashion entrepreneur. He owns a number of, I think about a dozen high street brands in Canada. He's made loads of money and he spent that money in all sorts of very colourful ways. He's got a private jet that he travels around the world with, which has a stripper's pole in the cabin.
He had a volcano on his island, so that seemed to have been part of it. He has loads of joke novelty stuff on his island, doesn't he,
What
Peter?
do you mean of
he has this volcano,
Island?
a pretend volcano that spits out...
It's a pretend one?
Several.
Yes, and he has a sort of snake that spits out all sorts of things. It was like, it sounds like a dodgy Disneyland. And the sad thing is he took Beatrice and Eugenie with him. So I don't know if he just thought it'd be novelty to go and hang out on this bizarre island for a day.
With so much negative press surrounding the Queen's favourite son, we asked PR and reputational expert Mark Bukowski whether Andrew could turn it around.
I think the idea of PRing Prince Andrew back into public life is one of the most impossible thoughts any human can have. It clearly is over for him. And the negative narrative hangs over like a nasty spell. I think it's now what he does in retirement. He is not someone who is fit for a PR campaign.
In the days before social distancing, we decided to go to Woking, the scene of that royal alibi, to find out from the public if Andrew would be welcome back.
No, not really. I don't think he should be. No way. He's sort of made a bit of a mockery of Woking, I think.
I don't think he would be welcome back in Woking after he's used us as his get-out clause to justify his bad actions.
Pizza Express, absolutely. I'm sure he would, because I'm sure people will want to come and see him just to see him eating in that pizza restaurant.
No.
Well, FBI interviews aside, there were more dark clouds on the horizon for Andrew and also Fergie, as it was revealed they were being sued for debts of more than £6 million on a ski chalet they owned in Switzerland.
They had to take out a £30 million mortgage, but they owed just under, I think it was £5 million at the time, but with interest it's gone up to £6.8 million to the vendor. Now, they promised that money would be paid back. It hasn't.
And then with the COVID crisis deepening and the economy suffering, we were all having to cut back on our spending. And that included the Queen. And of all her children, guess who was fighting this the hardest? Prince Andrew was reportedly lobbying the Queen for money.
It is very important that Prince Andrew doesn't receive any money from the taxpayers while he's not carrying out any royal duties. I don't know what the exact, I think there is, it's not very clear what the exact position is, but whether the money's coming from the Queen or from taxpayers, it's not good enough. He can't be benefiting from the taxpayer while not carrying out any duties at all.
As the investigations into Epstein continued, Andrew was subject to more allegations in the media.
This is the first time that someone inside the mansion at the time of Andrew's visit has actually provided an eyewitness account. She claims that he specifically invited 3 women to meet Prince Andrew and to dress up beautifully before their meetings. That Prince Andrew stayed in an opulent bedroom that was known as Room Britannica. She says that Epstein even bragged about the fact that he and Andrew watched a film, The King's Speech, together at a private screening.
In the documentary, she says that when she met him for the first time, Ghislaine Maxwell, who of course was Epstein's girlfriend, she played a guessing game with Andrew, Virginia claims, as to what her real age was. She says Andrew correctly guessed that was 17 and even likened it to the ages of his daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. Again, these are allegations that Andrew has emphatically denied.
And in what would have been happier news, Princess Beatrice, Andrew's daughter, married her fiancé Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi in a small ceremony which was held in the All Saints Chapel in Windsor in July. Unlike the flamboyant royal weddings we've come to expect in recent years, theirs was a pared-back affair and there was a notable absence from the official photographs.
I mean, that'll be a big punishment for him.
I'm sure he would have wanted the big wedding, just like he had for Eugenie before, with the
carriage procession. And he fought quite hard for Eugenie to have that big wedding, didn't he?
None of the official photographs, we saw 5 over the weekend, had the father of the bride in them.
The Epstein story returned to the front pages after his former partner Ghislaine Maxwell was found in an FBI manhunt. She's been hiding for the last 12 months, but last Friday, in a dramatic FBI sting operation, Maxwell was caught and taken into custody. Well, the Daily Mail's royal editor, Rebecca English, is Skyping in with us now. Hi, Rebecca. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Joe.
So tell us all about this. What does this mean for Ghislaine?
Well, yes, it has been a very dramatic few days on this case. So on Tuesday next week, Ghislaine Maxwell will appear in court in New York via video link from the detention centre in Brooklyn, where she's currently being held. And interestingly, I'm also told that some of the women who have accused her of grooming and trafficking them on behalf of Jeffrey Epstein will be allowed to give the courts their account of why they believe she should not be allowed bail. She is a serious flight risk. She's, after all, she's a multi-millionaire. She has passports from 3 different countries, including the UK, so that's something they don't want to happen.
And in terms of Andrew's position, I mean, Ghislaine's arrest doesn't necessarily affect him practically in the sense that we already had this ongoing dialogue about is he going to speak to prosecutors who are investigating Jeffrey Epstein, and we have had looking at sort of a back and forth over that. But I think in terms of the spotlight that is on him over this, it has amplified with Ghislaine's arrest because she is somebody who he has openly talked about as a friend. He has never attempted to distance himself from her, and that friendship is very much in the spotlight.
And clearly he and those who presumably he takes advice from, legal or otherwise, surely they've had such a long time to prepare for this, and I don't understand. If you've got nothing to hide, If you haven't done anything, why are you not helping to produce evidence against Maxwell?
The Prince Andrew story got another twist at the end of the year with a series of new explosive details and questions for the Prince over his conduct with Epstein and Roberts. Stephen Wright, one of the reporters on the story, fills us in.
We've established that he, contrary to what he told Emily Maitlis in his Newsnight interview, that he did stay at Jeffrey Epstein's house with his police bodyguard. We were told that Epstein, Virginia Roberts and Ghislaine Maxwell were not there, but nevertheless, you know, and we said it in the paper, he misled Emily Maitlis. I stress we wanted to do this in as forensic a manner as possible, but there are discrepancies and there are holes in the stories of both the accused and the accuser. The Duke, in terms of his memory and his inability, it seems, to recall key events. Virginia Roberts, as well, in terms of the allegations she's made, the details she has given, which, you know, there are holes in there and there are discrepancies, there are variations. The Duke has evidently a very poor memory, but he has a corporate memory around him. Bodyguards, secretaries, diarists, housekeepers. No one at the moment has been able to help him remember what happened.
And after all this, well, we just couldn't believe our ears. Just a year on from the Newsnight interview, rumour had it that Prince Andrew was hoping to re-enter public life.
It's been reported that Andrew is plotting a comeback, but I have to say I don't think anything has dramatically changed since he announced his plans to step back from public duties, albeit temporarily. There's a lot of stuff he still needs to resolve, although he's doing a bit of charity work in the background. And I'm sure he probably would like to resume his public duties and clear his name. But, you know, there's still the small matter of doing an interview with the FBI and, you know, convincing the public that he is innocent of all claims that have been made against him. So I find this quite hard to equate, I have to say.
If Andrew is cleared and what he said was absolutely true, I think the British people would, you know, might forgive him, but I just don't think globally he can come back.
Again, if he wants to or thinks that he can resume public duties, go around shaking hands with people on behalf of the Queen right now, then he is once again completely failing to understand the public mood on this.
With investigations continuing and Andrew's still keen to clear his name, this is another story that will likely stretch into 2021. We'll bring you all the latest updates here on Palace Confidential. Goodbye.